Hi folks, today I thought I'd talk a little about the 5K. So first, full disclosure, I hate 5Ks. I mean, towards the end of the 5K, the last mile, maybe a little bit longer, you are redlining. It is hard. They suck. I don't know that I've done very many 5Ks where I haven't said I'm never doing another 5K again. On the other hand, I think 5Ks are great. Why? First of all, you can do several 5Ks. They don't take a lot out of you. You could do a 5K 3 out of 4 weekends or more in a month. It's not like a marathon where you've got to have a lot of recovery after that. But also, because they're so hard, they're really great for helping build that mental toughness that you're going to need in a half marathon and a marathon. Now, they have their own parts of being really brutally hard, but I still don't think they're quite the same as the 5Ks. So as much as I hate 5Ks, I tend to do several of them a year, and I think you should too. So let's talk a little bit about the 5K. So first of all, go out and run 200 meters as fast as you can, multiply that by 25, and that's going to be your 5K time. Now, if you've ever done that, or you know your 200-meter time, you multiply, you say, you're crazy, I could never run a 5K that fast. Well, there's two reasons for that. One, the energy system that you use for the 200-meter is different than the energy system you use for the 5K. But the other is that the 5K is still an aerobic event, and 84% of the energy on average that you use is still going to come from your aerobic system. So you can never outrun your aerobic base. That's one of the reasons you can run those shorter distances much faster than a little bit longer distances. You need more aerobic power to be able to do that. So the first thing is when you're doing any type of 5K training, and actually in my experience, most people don't train for a 5K. They work it in with their half marathon training, and other distances, which is fine. But if you actually train for a 5K, you'd find that you can run a 5K a little bit faster. Doesn't make it any easier. It's still very hard, but faster. So here's some tips on how to have a faster 5K. So first of all, your long and easy runs, 84%. They are still the foundation of everything you do. You still have to have long runs. They tend to not be as long runs that you might have in half marathon or marathon training, but you still have them and you still have some easy running. The only exception might be sometimes people are going into 5Ks after they've done some marathon training. Then you really don't need as many long runs because you've established a lot of that base already, but still aerobic, it is the foundation. Now, I like to run those long runs and easy runs a little bit closer to marathon pace. So long runs and easy runs have a big range of what's considered easy, and typically the longer the distance, the slower you are running that. Part of it is the total miles that you're doing. Part of it is, what you need to do for that race. But I like to run them a little bit closer to marathon pace, which is still considered easy if, and it's a big if running them at that pace is not going to compromise your ability to be able to do your harder workouts as hard as you need to. If it is, then you need to back that pace off because easy runs cannot be so hard as to compromise other things. And of course, you still have recovery runs, which should always be done very, very easy. Intervals are a big part of 5K training. You generally have your shorter intervals, which are going to be 200 to 400 meters, and your longer intervals, say 600 meters up to 1600 meters. In general, you're going to want to run those shorter intervals a little bit faster than what your 5K pace is or what you're shooting for in the race. And you're going to run your longer intervals a little bit slower. So I like to think upon it as a vice, that you're getting a lot of running that's a little bit slower and a little bit faster. And as you get towards your race, you kind of close that vice in. So you're getting a lot of running right around that pace you want to run. And then, of course, you want some running to be at your pace as you're really sharpening up for your race. So shorter intervals tend to be faster. Longer intervals tend to be a little bit slower. Another great run is a long, steady tempo run. Now, I put tempo in quotation marks because tempo means various things. A lot of times tempo means working at your lactate threshold. And lactate threshold runs are generally not going to be more than 20, maybe 30 minutes at max. I'm talking about tempo more from a long, steady run that might be a little bit slower than your lactate pace because you'd like to get, 4, 5, 6 miles at that pace as you can. Generally about maybe 30 to 45 seconds to what your 5K pace is. That helps build some of that stamina and endurance by running at a pace that's a little bit harder than you're going to be running your easy runs, and you're running it for a long time, trying to build up a little bit of that endurance. Now, also in your training, and some of this is going to come from the interval running, you want to make sure that you train your brain. All training should be not just for your body, but for your mind as well, because running 80% mental, the other 20% is in your head. And especially when you get to that last part of the 5K where your brain is screaming at it that you can't do this, you've got to slow down, and Howie is trying to make you deals and you don't want to take the deal, you want some training to reflect back on in your brain where you've done some of that running at red line although it's only for shorter distances. So your mind says, well, okay, we've done this before. Doesn't mean it won't whine about it, but at least if your brain is familiar with the fact that you've done that before, it's a little bit easier to shut it down and say, yes, I can do this. I did this in training. My training prepared me, and you push through. And then finally, really work on pacing. And I like to work on pacing on a track because I don't find that GPS is accurate enough. You don't always have access to a track, but if you do, really using that to hone in on pacing. And why do I say honing in on the pacing? In a 5K, like all races, I always recommend that you start out a little bit slower and then get faster. But it's a pretty small window because the challenge in a 5K is if you start too slow, you can't make up the time at the end because you don't have enough time. In a marathon, you start a little bit slower. You got another 25 miles to do that. On the other hand, if you start out too fast in a 5K, you're going to bonk and you're going to die in the end. So being able to really control that pace and hit what you need to do, generally maybe 5 or 10 seconds slower than goal pace for that first mile, I think is a critical factor in being able to run a 5K. So again, I hate 5Ks. I don't like running 5Ks, but I think they are fabulous for your training. And if you're not doing some 5Ks, you probably should.